Akinyi was declared insane so her inheritance could be stolen. They locked her away behind hospital walls, signed papers in clean offices, and called it care. In Kamuga, inheritance was never just about land or money. It was about who survived long enough to claim the ashes. When Nicholas rose overnight from grieving widower to untouchable magnate, the elders whispered, because wealth does not move that quietly unless something has been buried with it. Akinyi did not return to Kamuga, and that in itself was her first act of war. Sit with me. This is a story about betrayal, silence, and what happens when the dead refuse to stay buried. Nicholas rose overnight from grieving widower to untouchable magnate, the elders whispered. Fortunes, they believed, did not move so quietly unless something had been buried with them. And somewhere behind locked gates and stained hospital walls, a girl named Akinyi was learning that betrayal, when left unpunished, always demands interest. Akinyi did not return to Kamuga. That in itself was her first act of war. Nicholas expected spectacle if she ever resurfaced. Lawyers, journalists, court orders served at his gate. Instead, nothing happened. Months passed, his businesses thrived. Lucy hosted charity luncheons. The past, he assumed, had been properly buried, but Helena understood strategy better than revenge addicts ever did. You don't announce resurrection, she told Akinyi calmly. You let them doubt the burial. From a rented apartment in Westlands, Akinyi began reconstructing herself under a different name, Amara Njeri. The alias was legal, meticulous, and untraceable. Helena arranged it quietly, exploiting loopholes she herself had once ruled upon from the bench. Amara Njeri applied for internships at financial auditing firms. Amara Njeri attended shareholder meetings as a silent observer. Amara Njeri volunteered for forensic reviews no one else wanted. And Amara Njeri learned exactly how Nicholas had hollowed out Cindy's empire from the inside. Lucy had always believed her father's story, that Akinyi was violent, that she was unstable, that she had attacked staff, hallucinated conspiracies, and destroyed herself with drugs. Lucy believed this because belief was easier than guilt, and because the houses, the cars, the respect, all depended on not asking questions. But guilt has a way of leaking through luxury. Lucy began noticing discrepancies. Board minutes altered after meetings, properties sold below market value, to shell companies' trust documents that contradicted one another, and then there were the dreams. A woman standing barefoot on a road. A scream that never reached sound. A mirror where Lucy's face dissolved into someone else's. Lucy dismissed them, until Amara Njeri requested a meeting. They met in a cafe overlooking the city. Akinyi did not reveal herself immediately. She spoke calmly, clinically, laying out figures Lucy had never seen compiled together. These are the assets transferred from the original trust, Akinyi said softly. These are the companies your father created to receive them. And this, she slid a document forward, is the psychiatric report used to declare the original heir incompetent. Lucy's breath caught. This doctor, Amara continued, has testified in 4 similar cases, all involving sudden inheritance transfers, all involving long-term institutionalization. 2 of those patients are dead. Lucy stood abruptly. Why are you showing me this? Akinyi finally met her eyes. Because you were never the heir, she said gently. You were the alibi. Silence between them was enormous. Lucy did not cry. She did not shout. She asked only one question. Is she alive? Akinyi answered truthfully. I am. Helena moved next. She reactivated contacts in the judiciary, not favors but memories. Judges who owed her their ethics. Prosecutors who remembered why they entered the law. The case was built silently, brick by brick. Financial fraud, medical malpractice, coercion, and bribery, unlawful confinement, attempted murder. The poison, long metabolized, had left chemical signatures preserved in archived blood samples from Akinyi's admission. Helena had known where to look. She always did. The paid doctor broke first, then the asylum director, then the accountant. Nicholas sensed something shifting, but power had insulated him too long. He mistook silence for safety. The exposure did not come through court, it came through shareholders. During the firm's annual general meeting, a forensic audit was introduced by an independent committee. The findings were devastating. A proxy vote was called. Nicholas was removed from the board within minutes. As he stood protesting, shouting about conspiracies and betrayal, a final name appeared on the screen under majority shareholder representation. Mercy Akinyi Oshino. The room froze. She stood, no rage, no theatrics, just truth. I was declared insane to steal what my mother left me, she said evenly. I survived it. and now I'm here to reclaim it. Security escorted Nicholas out, not as a villain, but as something worse, irrelevant. The trial lasted 14 months. Every day Nicholas shrank. Witnesses testified to beatings, to forced medication, to bribes passed in envelopes thick with blood money. George, the orderly, testified last. I left the door open, he said simply, because I wanted at least one of us to sleep again. Was convicted on all major counts. The sentence was not dramatic. It was complete. His assets seized, his companies dissolved, his name removed from foundations and boards. He entered prison not as a monster, but as a man stripped of illusion. Lucy testified for the prosecution. She forfeited the inheritance voluntarily. I don't want blood money, she said quietly. I want distance. Granted it. Akinyi did not move back into Cindy's estate. She turned it into a foundation, the Ash and Inheritance Trust. For victims of coercive guardianship, for those misdiagnosed for profit, for families erased by silence. She visited Kamuga once, not for closure, for acknowledgement. The elders said nothing. The land said enough. Some inherit gold, some inherit pain, some inherit both, and decide what survives. Akinyi never forgave Nicholas. Forgiveness, she learned, was not a moral obligation. It was a personal expense. Justice was enough. Thank you for listening. Tales of the Forgotten Village exists to give voice to stories that history tries to erase. Stories of inheritance stolen, silence enforced, and survival that refuses to remain invisible. To every listener who sits with these narratives, who dares to remember what others choose to forget, you are part of the witnessing. These stories are not meant to comfort. They are meant to remain. Thank you for carrying them forward.
Fresh and clean. Oh, the village remembers now every dead, every silent vow. Gold may fade, power may bend, truth will rise until the end. So listen close to every sound, where stories rise from hallowed ground. Kamuga speak,